what did we learn here? We learned what actual cost is. That is this. That is different from the planned value or the budget. And we have earned value that is below the budget line. And the, of course, planned value curve. Right? So remember this curve by heart. You may be asked to identify in exam about identify the planned value in this curve, or identify the earned value in this curve, or identify the actual cost in this curve. So there are 3 questions right there. So they will give this chart. You don't have to draw this chart in the exam, but they will ask you to identify them. So identification is important. So just remember this. What is the earned value? That's here. What is the actual cost? That's here. And what is the planned value? That's here. So let's quickly understand what these terms are. We have identified it, yes, but also for the exam, it is important that we learn what these terms are. PV, EV, and AC, they are not just the basic terms. There is also some meaning behind it. So PV, let's start with PV. PV is nothing but the authorized value that is assigned to us for an activity. So again, what is an activity? An activity is the result of work breakdown structure. We have a bigger work, we have a smaller work, and then we have a further smaller work. So after this work breakdown structure, the final or the bottommost component that we have is the activity. And so the value of this activity is again accumulated or aggregated, and then this curve is formed, the budget curve. So that is the planned value curve. I hope we understood. So in simple plain words, the planned value is the physical work that should have been done. So what is EV? This is the budget for the works that is already finished, right? So this is actually the actual values of the work that is done. So it is usually used to measure the percentage of work that is completed, right? So usually if we use just another curve, this is the complete work curve. And at one particular point of time, what is the EV? So the earned value after 1 quarter, earned value after 2 quarters, earned value after 3 quarters, just an example. So this EV is used to measure that kind of percentage completed work. So, and one more important thing is this EV, as you can see, is always below the planned value. So that is also an important thing. It might come as a question. Can EV be greater than PV? No, it can never be greater than PV. EV is always lesser or smaller than PV. So, and moving to the actual cost. Actual cost is nothing but the real cost. Here in the EV, we talked about the work or the value, and here we are talking about the actual costs. So the actual costs must match with the budgeted planned value and measured earned value, right? So it cannot go absurd, like it cannot go like this, right? So it should correspond with the PV curve and the EV curve. These two curves are going in this way, so the actual cost must also follow this trend. It can be higher, for sure it will be higher. It cannot be lesser than the budget value. It never is. If it is, good for you. So it should always follow this trend of the S curve. Just keep that in mind. I think we have learned enough of this. Let's quickly move to the next. Again, the cost, and we have the time here, and we have the beautiful S curve. Always remember budgeted actual cost at the end of the project. And then we have management reserve, and this is actually the projected budget. And we have actual cost. We will draw a point in time, and we have an earned value here. So when we project this curve, it will go and reach somewhere here. So we will quickly mark it again. This is the earned value, this is the planned value, this is the actual cost. So we will need this graph again for this quick explanation. So where we are, the variance analysis, right? So here we have 4 processes: the schedule variance, the cost variance, the schedule performance index, and the cost performance index, right? So what is SV? We should learn SV now. SV, let me use another color. SV is nothing but the EV minus PV. Such a simple formula, right? So the schedule variance is nothing but the earned value minus the planned value. Measured at what point? Here. So this indicates nothing but the performance of the schedule by showing whether the project is ahead of the time or whether it is, slower than the time. So these techniques is best used with the traditional CPM technology, CPM not technology, the methodology, right? So this is quite traditional method. All these S curves and all, they are not agile methods, right? So in the examinations, the number of questions is becoming lesser and lesser, but you will still get to see the questions from this. So at the end of the project, just remember that the scheduled variance, right? The difference between the earned value and the projected value has to become 0 at the end of the project. Just remember that. So SV value is going to be 0 at BAC or the end of the project. So let me clear it so that only the S curve is seen. Yeah, let's learn about the cost variance. What is the cost variance? CV, we're talking about here. CV is the difference between EV and the actual cost. Here, earlier we discussed it was the difference between EV and PV. So the CV is nothing but the difference between EV and the actual cost. So what happens here? Again, it measures the performance of the cost. So, and at the project end, the budgeted actual cost and the actual amount spent, if it is negative, we cannot recover from this. So this value, EV minus AC, we should make sure that it is always positive. Let's move quickly to the schedule performance index. What is this? Schedule performance index is nothing but EV over PV, the earned value over the planned value, right? So this talks about how efficient my team is in finishing the work, right? We're talking about just the values, not the cost yet. So this SPI or the schedule performance index, it has to be whatever value that it comes, it means something, right? So if it is greater than 1, it means that we have done more work than what we planned, right? So if it is less than 1, that means we have done less work than what we have planned, right? So these are also direct questions, guys. It may ask you like SPI is greater than 1. So what does it mean? We should select that it is more work done than it is planned. Or the question could be the other way. The work done is lesser than what is planned. What is the value of SPI? They may give some answers, some tricky question. One of them could be less than 1 and others could be more than 1. And you have to select the answer that is less than 1. So remember, SPI, there are 2 values to it. If it is greater than 1, we have done more work than we have planned. If SPI is less than 1, we have done less work than what we have planned.